I'm back. Okay, let's see if we can get Chris back. Maybe some other guests. If there's anyone out. Oh, my banner, as usual. The link should be pinned. Just click it to come on. Let me turn this off. Ooh, you back. There you are.
What's up?
Not much. What's up, bro?
How'd Big Brother go?
Oh, it was good. It's scary week, so they're gonna have. I don't know. They're doing a little something different this week with it.
Okay. I've never watched Big Brother, so I don't really know anything about it. I know it's kind of like Survivor, but they're just in a house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, there's a lady from Survivor on it this week with her son, and he just got kicked out.
Okay.
But he might come back.
Yeah, that's always the thing with those shows that no one's ever really gone, right?
I hate that. I like it when they were just gone. I don't like when they bring back. Who is Adam? Adam, can I see you on camera? We're trying to. Oh, Mr. C. Okay. Yay.
Yeah, I'm real. I'm not a troll. I swear.
Yeah, I didn't know that C stood for Adam. So
well,
welcome.
You see, the C doesn't actually stand for anything at all. Because I'm a nihilist.
Oh,
okay.
Me too. Are you?
No. Actually, I'm lying.
Okay. I really am a nihilist.
Well, I don't find that surprising personally.
Well, good. So, what's up? You had wanted to talk about the death of the author or something?
Yeah.
First, we have a writer. Chris is an author.
All right.
So, Chris,
a screenwriter. I don't know about an author. I've never written a book, but yeah.
Well, you write. So, the death of author. It's obviously a trope or a metaphor, some figurative way. It's a concept because we have authors and they write things. So we're not talking about physical. Oh, Pelmini, death of author time. Yeah, you can come on too if you want.
Pelmini. Just for the record, Chris, just so I'm entirely clear on this. While I do believe in death of the author, I do not believe that you should be killed. Just so we're on the same page.
I know that. Yeah, that's funny though. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I'm a little out of it right now, so it took me a second to get that. I'm a little slower than normal, but.
Well, it's midnight. Everybody's a little slower.
It used to be my most vibrant time of day. Was about midnight or so.
Yeah. Somebody's echoing really bad.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from because I've checked all mine. I don't have any other sound sources up.
Is it me?
Maybe so. You, Jeff.
Well, how is it? I'm not doing anything differently. Let me
Well, the only time I don't hear echoing is when you're talking. So
let me see if the echo setting is checked. Yeah, echo cancellation's on. No, I haven't changed anything. Let me try my headset and tell me if that makes a difference.
All right.
Give me 1 second. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I got rid of it.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I don't know why. It's suddenly echoing. I've been streaming the whole time with the same setup.
I noticed it a little bit earlier, to be honest, but it wasn't bad enough to notice. But whenever he came on,
it does that on Discord too, and it never does it on Zoom. I don't know why.
You're right. I've never noticed it on Zoom before. I guess this is better noise cancellation on Zoom, or since they're really focused on call quality and stuff like that. They probably have better noise cancellation. I guess I don't know. Anyway,
so
how did you come across Jeff's stream, Adam?
Post.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, so I first came across Jeff when he debated Andrew Wilson on.
Right.
I forgot what that debate was even on, honestly.
Gay marriage.
Oh yeah. And I was Of all the Satanists I've ever heard talk, I think Jeff is probably the least objectionable, despite being a Satanist. So
I need to do better.
Okay, but yeah, the reason I'm on is because apparently Jeff doesn't like Death of the Author, and I'm actually interested to hear his issues with the concept.
I'm interested to hear why you do. First of all, let's define the concept to make sure we're even talking about the same thing. So start us off with that.
So Death of the Author, I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but I actually listened to the original essay. So this doesn't, not all the ideas originate with Roland Barthes, but he was the first person to sort of formalize everything. And the essay, The Death of the Author, which was written in, I believe, 1967, I might be wrong on that. It's relatively short and it's French. So it's French philosophy, therefore it's nearly impenetrable. But as I understand it, it is the claim that authorship itself is not really a significant role, at least when it comes to interpreting a text. So that any given amount of meaning that is derived from a text is not inherent to whatever the author intended for the text to contain, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I haven't read the essay, but
that's how I understand it too.
Yeah, that like intention doesn't matter.
Not that it doesn't matter, but that it isn't relevant for direct interpretation. Like, I mean,
what is direct interpretation? Because I just know interpretation.
Well, so it's like, well, I'm using terms loosely here, and I should probably work on that. But when so Roland Barthes uses the term author God to sort of put point on how people in the West specifically view authorship, as if the author is like the God coming down and deciding what an individual piece of text means. But I think a lot of people in modern day sort of understand that that's not true. The most obvious example that most people think of is J.K. Rowling arbitrarily coming back and saying that Hermione was always black, or that Dumbledore was gay the whole time, or stuff like that. Stuff that isn't in the text and that isn't really supported by the text. Or
she don't know. Who is she to say that? No, I don't know if there's anything to debate, because I kind of agree. I kind of agree.
Okay. Well, he said it was false. I thought we were going to be.
Well, there's this postmodern idea that language does the writing, that authors don't actually write their work, and it's the demiurge of language. So I thought it was more related to that. Authors write, not language, but the interpretation is centered on the reader. So the author doesn't have any more authority or expertise to interpret their work than anybody else. Once they write it and hand it off, their work is done. The criticism of the text, like a text can carry infinite amount of meanings. So the author would only be able to give one interpretation of that text, and there's no reason to privilege that any more than any other interpretation that somebody can offer, as long as the text sustains that particular reading.
Well, while I agree that there is an infinite number of interpretations for text, I do not necessarily agree that all of these interpretations are equal. I mean, obviously there are some interpretations that are better than others.
Well, we might have something to debate that, although I don't necessarily dispute that. Equals may be a clumsy way of saying it, but what makes one interpretation equal or another? I would say valid or supported by the text versus
I think
supported by the text.
I think what you run against something like that, it's one thing whenever Rowling comes along and tries to say that Dumbledore is always gay, which is, whatever. I mean, it really doesn't really matter. It's just kind of like, it's a bit of like, it's almost like her fan fictioning her own work. But it'd be another thing if someone were just somehow it derives some esoteric interpretation from Harry Potter saying how it was really a justification for pedophilia or something like that. And it's like something in that sense, I don't think that their interpretation, unless they had some really good, they could really prove that, or like people that try to say how the Matrix is really a trans metaphor, which really does not make a lot of sense. When you actually watch it, I try to watch it with that lens, and I was like, no, I really don't see how you're trying to make that make sense, But people like want to like force those kind of interpretations onto things because like they relate to them or something like that.
And that's allegorizing.
Yeah, and then I'm just saying that's where I think death. That's for me is where Death of the Author ends. That's where like I do think that what you were saying before, Jeff, like there's a lot of interpretations for a lot of things that can mean a lot of different things. But then when people start trying to like projecting their own ideologies and things onto things that don't have anything to do with them, that's where I kind of have to like you have to kind of put your foot down, I guess, on something. I don't know. I
do have one thing on that. On like projecting ideologies, I do think that there is something to be said about viewing a text from a specific lens, like. An example would be like a feminist critique or like the Bechdel test, which is definitely a way to view a text as to saying like, okay, what is this text saying from a feminist lens? Or you could take like a Christian lens saying, okay, how does this relate to Christianity? Nathan Del Rake, quote unquote, Smith, he's Canadian, so he's allowed to make those sorts of jokes. He did like a Christian interpretation, or specifically how the Lego movie relates to Gnosticism, which is a specific lens. It's basically trying to superimpose a framework onto the text, and I find those exercises very interesting, at least.
I do find them interesting. I find it interesting. I just don't know that I think they're per se valid, is I guess what I'd say. Like, I don't think they're necessarily. I think they're interesting. It's interesting to read. I just don't know if you can say it's a really valid interpretation of something. But yeah, I think that would be really. I'd like to read. If you have a link to that, I'd love to read that. I'd love to see how the Lego movie can be interpreted through a lens of Gnosticism. I think that's fascinating sounding.
Oh yeah, he is actually a YouTuber. I can send that in the chat.
Sure, definitely.
But I'm of the view that all texts are interpreted through some lens or another, even if it's not one that you have.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
What would a lens that you don't know you have be? Like, because everybody reads. You can have a very idiosyncratic interpretation filtered through your own experiences, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a lens.
Well, so I can give you an example in the form of I guess a sort of Aesop's fable that David Foster Wallace wrote. So you have two fish, and they're two younger fish, and they're sort of swimming along through the ocean, and then a larger fish comes along and says, "Hey guys, how's the water today?" And then he swims off, and then one fish turns to the other and asks, "What the heck is water?" It's like I would say it's like the default view that you don't necessarily know that you have within society. I mean, I think that all this
is that makes sense to me.
Well, what I'm struggling with is there's very individual critics and readers that read in highly unique ways. So a lens to me implies that it's shared by at least two people, more than one person. But I don't think that's always the case. I think you can have a reading peculiar to just a single individual, and then that wouldn't be something like water that multiple people share or swim in. So I think maybe it's semantic, but it's the metaphor of lens that I'm having trouble with, because to me it implies something shared, that like Chris can read this book through the same exact lens. I can hand it off to him, and then he can look through that lens and see the same exact thing that I'm seeing when I look through that lens. But I'm not sure reading works quite that way. I think there's going to be a personal element in both of our readings that's going to differ regardless of even if we're using the same lens.
To some extent, I would agree. Yeah. But at the same time, like I would think that if you just took a random dude off the street and plopped him in front of a movie theater and was like, okay, what the fuck is, I don't know, like The Matrix about? He's going to come away with a similar view to, I guess, the mainstream interpretation of The Matrix, which is that it's well, at least the main one I've seen is it's like understanding the world in a better way and then trying to help other people understand the world in a better way. And I think that has to do with people's common experience just within modern culture or in general.
Sure. I'd also say too, like, you know, I was gonna say this before, and I don't know, I lost my train of thought, but I see what you're saying there, and I also think it's important to note that even though I do think that you could say like some certain interpretations, some works could be less valid in a sense, in a generalized sense of like for everyone. I only get frustrated with death of the author types whenever they thrust some sort of ideology onto a work and they insist that that's the only correct interpretation instead of like being like this is my interpretation of it. See, I don't have a problem with someone having a personal or personalized interpretation of anything. That, you know, it means something to them. It means something to them in that way. I have things that are like that. But I know they don't mean that, but they mean that to me, you know? So, I mean, I think that there's, you know, it's just whenever people try to like thrust it on everyone else, like expect everyone else to see that lens is like whenever it becomes problematic. I think it's also kind of funny whenever you think of like, I think it's also funny to think about like there's certain things I've seen before that I know for a fact are especially metaphors for something in certain works. Have you ever seen the show True Blood, for example?
No, I haven't.
Is that the one in Louisiana with the vampire?
Yes, the vampire one.
I tried to watch it there.
Yeah, it's not very good. It's not very good. And the thing about it that's so crazy to me is the fact that the whole thing is supposed to be this metaphor. The vampires are supposed to be metaphors for homosexuals, supposed to be metaphors for gay people. And I'm like, so what are you trying to say here? Trying to say that all homosexuals are bloodthirsty, like monsters that kill people? I mean, like it's supposed to be like that because they're in the world of the show. You know, they're outcasts. They're on the edges of society. That's because they eat people. You know, it's like it's like what are you trying to say here? And it's written by a gay man. It was written and created by a gay man, Alan Ball, who also wrote American Beauty, which is one of the worst.
Oh, it's 6 Feet Under too.
Yeah, well, I do like 6 Feet Under. American Beauty is terrible, but
I love that one.
But yeah, but I mean, like, I'm just like, so what is it? What are you trying? I've always thought the same way, but the whole thing that X-Men is supposedly like a metaphor for gay people too, and I'm like, so
gifted.
No,
gay people have X-Men, superpowers. Yeah.
No, okay, no. X-Men, I believe, was intended by the original authors to be a metaphor for the civil rights movement. There's a very clear dichotomy between Charles Xavier and Magneto being MLK and Malcolm X, respectively.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but I've
heard it doesn't matter what he originally intended it to be.
Yes, yeah, I'm not saying that it matters. I'm just saying I think that's what the intent was.
Because I would say that The Matrix and True Blood is not about anything. I would say it's a work of art, and each person that experiences is going to bring their own experience to it. And 200 years from now, people may watch The Matrix and come out with a completely different. Once those kind of interpretations are allegorizing. An authentic allegory is built into the work by the author. If you're seeing a work that doesn't have intentional allegory in it, and your interpretation is it's about that it represents gay people or it represents trans or whatever, that's an interpretation that you're superimposing on it. But I wouldn't say that's what the work is about. I don't think it's about any one thing. I think they're complex enough to be about as many things as people can make them allegories of.
Well, I would say that there are definitely cases in media where there is like painfully obvious allegory. Like the most obvious would be Animal Farm, which is just
because I think Orwell intended, like he intentionally put the allegory in there when he was creating it.
Yes, certainly. But that's a case where it's like, okay, I'm sure there's a vegan reading of Animal Farm, but clearly, like the strongest reading is Russian Revolution, or I believe the Bolshevik Revolution in particular. But the thing that I find really interesting is when you have a reading of a text that was clearly not intended by the author, but has very strong evidence. And I don't know how much I can talk about the KKK on here. But I actually have a funny one.
I don't either. Does it put us at risk? I don't know. Try it. See what happens.
Okay. So, have either of you read the Legend of Drizzt series?
Is that the Dark Elf from Forgotten Realms? No, I haven't.
Yes.
I'm surprised I even know who it is.
I don't know that, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is an example of an author not knowing what they're doing across different books. So in one book, there is a very obvious allegory for the KKK, who is going around basically killing orcs because they hate orcs, basically. This is actually multiracial KKK. It's CCC in the book, but they wear hoods, they kill orcs randomly by hanging, and they have like a very specific salute. It is so obvious that it's an allegory for the KKK. And the explanation they give is because orcs are inherently savage. They have an inherent proclivity to go out, kill, rape, murder, all this stuff. We don't like it, so we want to get rid of them. So we're going to terrorize them till they leave. Now, this, their view of orcs is later shown to be correct by a goddess in a different book later down the line. So if we're going by the allegory, according to the Legend of Driss series, the KKK is right, which is, like, I don't think R.A. Salvador intended that reading. I really don't think he did. But it's
let me
also
stop
very
you.
clearly there.
The goddess said, yes, it's about the KKK, or
no,
how would she know what the KKK is in that?
Or world? No, I'm sorry. The goddess says that the in-universe KKK, the CCC, is correct about their views on orcs.
Oh, okay, but she's not validating the external allegory.
No, she's validating the internal allegory, but yeah. I mean, if the allegory means anything, then it's supposed to map on something in the real world. Unless I guess he could argue that it was like, inspired by the idea of the why would you use that? I don't know. It seems like such an obvious like connection to make that. Yeah, that's a really stupid it's a really bad. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about R.A. Salvatore. I think I've read one of his books before, but I mean, I never got I don't remember ever getting a racist vibe from him, but who knows?
Oh, he is not racist at all. Like reading his books with the most straightforward readings possible, it's like, okay, yeah, this guy's basically just a liberal, like a normal liberal. But well, except for all the stuff on the Drow, like holy crap. Oh man!
Well, Dungeons and Dragons has been accused of that from
idiots
from very early on.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's all stupid. Like,
they just changed are they getting rid of the races or the half races or something in the current version?
So they're changing the term races to lineage or something else. They said that they were removing half races specifically, because of and they said that half races were inherently racist. I don't understand why.
Yeah, that's something like that.
Someone who's half black, half Mexican, or something like that would be
I'm half
abomination, right? I guess they're an abomination to the left decide that's not. It's probably like. I don't even understand. There's no point in trying to analyze left thinking anymore. It's just like dear God, like
it's first world people sitting around an office with not enough to do.
I mean, I could see I could almost see like the CCC thing. I could almost see like an author. Like I try to put myself in like the author's shoes and try to empathize my way through that. Like why it would they're trying to imagine a situation in this fantasy universe in which the KKK would be justified. Almost, but that's still a terrible idea to put in your book.
But you can't. I'm very skeptical of attempts to scry into an author's mind based on their.
I know. I'm just trying to imagine. I'm not saying that.
I don't think it's a
window
into their psychology.
No, I'm not saying. I don't believe that it is. I don't believe that I'm really interpreting them per se. I'm just trying to put myself in their shoes and trying to think of like what would make me think that would be a good thing to write. I just don't see a good reason for it.
Because the story demanded it. It like went with the. If you're an artist, you're trying to tell the best story that you can, and stories kind of, I mean, if you're a good craftsman, they're going to dictate certain creative decisions over others. If somebody asked me what True Blood was about, I would say it's about vampires killing people. If they asked me what The Matrix is about, I would say it's about what Neo and taking the pill and discovering reality. I haven't seen it since it first came out. If they asked me what the Elf book was about, I'd say it's about these elves that go around killing orcs. So to say it's about gay people or trans people, whatever, you are super adding some external allegory onto what the book is actually about, which really you're just talking about plot. When someone says, what is it about? They're asking what the plot is. If you start giving them something other than the plot, that's not what it's about. That's an interpretation at that point.
Possibly. I mean, like with True Blood, that's actually, I mean, that was actually the author's stated intent. My point was really
the movie itself.
Yeah, that was my point.
Show it to a total stranger at another time and country, it's about vampires.
Yeah, I know. That was my point. Was
watch it and say, "Oh, this is about gay people."
Well, that was my point. Was that he's clearly wrong about his own work? Was what I was trying to say. But
yeah, I mean, that's just one interpretation among many.
Well, I mean,
same with the R.A. Salvatore book.
Well, he could be, really homophobic,
Yeah, right.
Well,
that's true.
I doubt that, considering that he's gay, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's very possible.
All of that, I think, is it's extraneous to the work itself.
Yes. Yes.
So there's some interpretations that arise out of the reading of the work or the watching of the movie, and there's some that are kind of imported from without or connected to external things that really are not in the movie or the text. And to me, the more valid, if we want to use that word, readings are the ones that emerge from it are grounded in the work itself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are most persuasive to me anyway when I read them.
Well, I'm trying to think, like, what would be like a case of, if any, where author intent would trump the text itself.
I don't think there can be one. Just the structure of art and how it works. I don't think there could be one.
Actually, I think I just thought of one, and this is actually a really stupid one. So, Ed Greenwood has a really stupid contract with Wizards of the Coast. Basically, anything he says becomes canon by default about the Forgotten Realms, because of his contract. I might have to look up the specific thing again. It was on 1D4chan. It was like wiki, but for nerd crap. Very fun site. But he has like a lifelong contract with Wizards of the Coast where anything that he has said will become canon in Forgotten Realms with like a specific context, which is really stupid. But at that point, it just turns into whatever he says becomes the text.
But that's different from it actually being the text. So I guess canon is something maybe different than the actual text itself. Which brings another point of Death of the Author. That's kind of the multiverse. You don't even have, like, you have creative teams now. You have entire franchises, or they're even authors. You may have a whole team of 10 people working on one movie or storyline.
Yeah, in those cases, that's going to be a lot more.
So, like, to me, you even are more forced to fall back on the work itself. If there's no actual author you could trace.
Well, there's probably very little meaning in any of those works anyway, though. They usually tend to be like the broad studio kind of stuff, like a Marvel movies and stuff like that. So I don't think you'll probably find too much meaning in those anyway. But I think there's an interesting tangent to this that I just thought of, though, to this conversation, though. So I think we can all kind of agree that, like, at least on the whole, like what you're saying, Jeff, I think it's right that that it doesn't, like, you can't use the author and the author's intent to per se like give the definitive interpretation of a work, because there isn't really a definitive interpretation. But is the inverse? Can the inverse be true? Can you interpret an author through their work?
That's a good question. Many have tried. That's biographical criticism.
Right.
But how do you know? Especially with dead authors, how would you ever know? It's still an interpretation that you're.
I know
offering.
people love to do it all the time. I mean, like, I can't really, like, I mean, I've never heard Quentin Tarantino talk about him loving feet, but everyone constantly points out that he focuses on feet extensively in his movie. So they're like, he's got a foot fetish. Clearly, maybe he does. I mean, I don't know that, but I mean, it seems likely.
Of stuff like that.
Yeah. I just thought it was an interesting tangent onto the Death of the Author question. I'm like, I wonder if, like, how definitively we can really feel like we know. I mean, do you really ever really know an author through their work, like some people think they do. Some people really believe that they know this person or that, or that this creator or that creator because they've seen what they did in their work. They've seen, but you don't know that person is in real life. Like is it ever valid to try to do that? I doubt it is, but
I don't think you can. I used to have parasocial relationships with the bands and music groups I was into, and I thought I had like an insight into their personality and who they were. But I didn't. They were just artists in a studio making an album together. Like I had no clue who they actually were as people. I'm making my way through Genesis right now, and just the interpretations of the Bible, like the Noah story and his sons. There's like one line where he's lying in his tent naked, and the son goes in and sees him naked, and they're just working off of a small string of words, and the interpretations that the scholars are coming up with off of just those few words, but they're all grounded in the actual words. They're like, we interpret it as he's having sex with his wife because of this word in Hebrew, or the son sodomized him because of this word in Hebrew. So they're all working from the text itself. So I think when you have readings like that ground themselves in the actual text, one interpretation is just as valid as another. It's whichever one persuades you and resonates with you by whatever criteria you use.
Yeah, I mean that's just true.
But if someone said that, like came in and said it's about gay people, it's an allegory of gay people, that would be different because that's going outside of the actual text of Genesis.
Once again, but I mean, if they really did interpret it like that, I guess it's one thing. It's just a matter of they come in, they insist that everyone sees their interpretation. That's what I get. That's where I get frustrated with the death of the author. People that talk about that term a lot, they tend to try to use it as a way to insist that their interpretation is right. That's the only place I really. Well,
it's their job to give a convincing interpretation, and you do. To me, you do that best by grounding it in the text as much as you can. Like if every point of your interpretation can be aligned with what's in the actual text, that would be a more convincing interpretation to me. But nobody's obligated to take anybody's reading seriously or as gospel if they can't convince the person to do so through the strength of the reading itself.
I think people that do that kind of thing tend to be it's kind of a symptomatic thing of that same. They're the same kind of people that want to insist that everyone use their pronouns and they want to control language in general. So it really has nothing to do with very much beyond them just want to control people and they're control other people's thoughts and control how they think about things. So they just use death of the author as an excuse for that. They use it as a way to attack to attack works that they feel like that belong to them. And they don't want them to belong to anybody else, like this is what the people were doing with the Matrix thing, with trying to put the trans interpretation on it anyway. That's what it felt like to me. I not that I really care much for the Matrix either way, especially after the fourth one.
Have you watched? I haven't rewatched it since it came out. Was it 99?
I think the first three. I still have a lot of respect for the original trilogy.
I didn't even care for it much then. It was like Philosophy 101.
Yeah, but it's a really good action movie. Besides that, it's a really well made action movie, and the one that actually has some fairly middlingly deep philosophy, and it's not the worst thing in the world. A lot of people can walk away from thinking they're geniuses because they understood the Matrix or something, and that's certainly annoying. But it's not like same thing that happens with people in Fight Club. They think like they walk out of it thinking like they understand something really meaningful and profound. And those people can be annoying, but at the same time, it doesn't really bother me that people start thinking, for themselves at some point. So I mean, with the Matrix trilogy, the first three of them, I think they all have really good points. The Reloaded has got some really interesting stuff in it, and also some of the worst stuff in the whole series. Revelations is probably the most mid of all of them, but it also has some interesting stuff in it too. I think they're really weird esoteric films for what they are. The fourth one, the most recent one, Revolutions or Resurrections or whatever it's called, I think it's Resurrections, is easily one of the worst movies I've ever seen. So, and I wanted to like it, and actually I did like it for like the first half of it, and then after the second half, just completely drops everything and made it interesting the first half of it. So, I mean they're not, but I think the first one's still kind of a masterpiece of '90s action movie making. Nothing else. It's still got some beautiful shot work in it. It's got some great moments, just like some of the most badass individual shots and scenes for an action movie ever made. So I still give it a lot of credit for that. Anyway,
I think it was the acting that I remember it bugging me.
Yeah, the acting's not great, but it's an action movie. So.
But it's such a cultural touchstone. So much of the language, the modern language, is permeated by it. I'm thinking it might be worth going back.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good candidate for another movie night sometime soon. I'd also like for us to watch. I just thought of this earlier and I forget. What was it? There was a couple of them actually. I started making a list somewhere. I wrote it down, but I don't know.
Yeah, I have a list too. We can put our list together.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about. I wanted to watch Jerry Maguire and probably.
I love that one.
And Last Temptation of Christ too.
I haven't seen that one since it came out either.
Yeah, I think we talked about them when we talked about our role models for masculinity talk we did with John, and like those are ones I mentioned then, and I think we should, since we've been kind of like focusing on things that kind of like center around those kind of ideas.
Well, lately we've been focusing on blonde women with identity crises.
Well, I guess with just the one movie, right?
Well, Mulholland Drive. Did we watch Persona? Did we watch
I didn't know you watched.
Did we watch Nurse Betty?
I didn't know you watched Persona and Mulholland Drive. Yeah. Mulholland Drive's great.
So I'm ready. We could switch to something more masculine. Although tomorrow we're doing Barbie. So, that'll be a nice transition.
Barbie's a good transition into the other thing because it is a movie that's both about a blonde woman having an identity crisis. It is about that. That's true. That's really weird. It is about that, and it's a movie that has like a weirdly large, confusing number of things to say about men's role in society, and that's what makes it worth us watching.
It'll be a good test case for our interpretive theories too.
Yeah, because I would really I really want to hear other people's interpretations of it. Period, because I still have no idea what the fuck it was even trying to say. And it is one of the most gobsmackingly like confusing things I've ever seen. Oh, did you see it, Adam?
I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I've seen a lot of YouTube content on the movie. There's a lot of wacky interpretations you can get out of it.
Yeah, there are.
That's what I hear.
Just like from looking at it from the perspective of Ken, like going through it with that sort of angle, and it's like, okay, yeah, well, so is the Barbie society inherently super oppressive?
Don't say anything yet.
Yeah, don't spoil it too much.
Yeah.
But we're watching it tomorrow.
Yeah, we're watching it tomorrow on stream. But we're gonna watch it in a Zoom thing, and then we'll have a Barbie discussion panel afterwards for whoever's there involved. So if you want to come get on that would be great. We'd love
that tomorrow?
Yep, tomorrow at 6 Central.
Which
6
is
Central.
8 Central.
Oh, it's 8 Central?
No. Yeah, 6. No, wait, let me check. Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me which time it is.
No, you're right. You're right. 6.
Okay. Yeah.
6-ish. As soon as I.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be there's some leeway there. It doesn't have to be necessarily 6 on the dot, but.
All right. Well, I'm probably not going to be available at that time.
Oh, well, that's
unfortunately.
I think we're going to stream the discussion afterwards. So.
Yeah, we're going to stream the discussion afterwards.
So, I don't know. Did we resolve this debate already? It sounds like we mostly.
We really have I don't really feel like we had a debate on it. Really, we just had a discussion. Yeah. I think we're all pretty much on the same page there. So
I was ready to fight.
But fight over death of the author? That'd be a weird thing to fight about.
But their interpretations mean nothing.
Well, so there were other aspects of Death of the Author, and I can see like the sort of postmodernist take that the text itself writes itself within the text of Roland Barthes' essay. Obviously, I don't agree with that. Like, I don't even understand where the heck that would even come from. Possibly because I'm not very good at philosophy and not French. But that's a different topic. I'm sorry.
There's so many people that don't think they can do philosophy that I think are just brilliant. There's people that think they can't read Nietzsche.
Well, I would argue that only people who can't think that they can't do philosophy are probably worthy to even try to be philosophers. So,
no, they'd probably be the best at it.
That's what I'm saying. The only people that are worthy to be philosophers are people that think they can't. Because anybody who thinks that they could be a philosopher, that's someone I don't want to listen to. So,
is the Barthes essay very Pomo?
I don't know what Pomo means.
Postmodern.
A bit.
It's French and written in the late 60s.
Yeah, I mean, I can. I think that Death of the Author is a bit inherently postmodernist. Over time, I'm becoming less and less averse to a lot of postmodernist thought. Honestly, like I'm an Orthodox catechumen, just to put my cards on the table. So obviously, I don't fully agree with.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means. I'm sorry.
Orthodox. Arthur Bro. We've been getting a lot of Arthur Bros.
Yeah. So it just means training to become an Orthodox Christian, because in the Orthodox Church you have to go through a process of learning and understanding the faith in order to actually become a part of the church.
That makes sense. I like that.
It isn't the same as Protestantism, where you just say a prayer that's like 2 sentences and then you're a full member of the church and everybody has to say you're Christian. Yeah, so I've been doing that. I mean, I am very iffy about saying anything about myself online. I don't ever come on camera.
It's fine.
And I have 5 different accounts, 5 different names. None of them are real. None. But I think my religious convictions aren't something I can lie about.
Okay. I mean, I believe that all. I have no problem with anybody's particular religion or anything like that. So, I mean, like, I myself, I consider myself to be a Gnostic Christian. So, I mean, and I don't even know if I could say what that means. So,
okay. Well, I did send the Gnostic reading of the Lego.
I saw it. No, I already bookmarked the video and everything. I'm gonna watch it later.
All right.
I'm looking at Death of the Author right now.
But the way I understood it is from other people explaining it. I did try to go through the text itself and try to understand it, but honestly, a lot of it just went over my head. The text itself, which is very ironic, might I add. I couldn't understand the text of the Death of the Author.
Well, maybe so that's his way of making interpretations. He's making it experientially.
Or maybe he's just not. Maybe it's one of those. It could be one of those philosophical type texts that whenever I've read a few myself, and I've come to the conclusion at the end of it that the only reason anybody thinks this is deep is because they don't want anyone to think they're stupid for saying it's not. There really isn't anything there. I mean, there's nothing to understand, and then I read. I'm like, I don't think there's really anything there. I think that people are acting like this is deep because they don't want to. They don't admit that they don't understand it either. But I'm not saying that's the case. What this is, I'm just saying that I've come across those kind of things before.
I mean, the only philosopher who I can say I actually really tried to get into and try to understand was Nick Land, and that's because I think he's hilarious, which is probably not the best reason.
Where did he show up recently? Oh, Machine Lies. Did a stream. Yeah, he and Nero Jack are into him or talking about him.
Yeah, they don't like Nick Land. I talked to Machine Lies a little bit about Nick Land.
I don't know much about it. That's the foundationalism.
Or no. Charles Haywood is foundationalism.
Isn't he involved in that though? Nick Land? Or accelerationism. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes. Nick Land, I wouldn't say that he's the founder of accelerationism, but he was one of the biggest proponents of it. According to Nick Land, accelerationism goes back to Deleuze and Guattari, at least if I'm remembering my land right. If Machine Lies is watching this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Deleuze and Guattari were French, so naturally they are very hard to understand.
They were definitely Pomo.
Yes, absolutely. Nick Land. Okay, to try to simple. Okay, here's the thing about Land. All right, he was involved with a group called the CCRU, which is the Cybernetics Culture Research Unit, which is, on one hand, they'll have like complex philosophical essays. On the other hand, they'll be talking about ghost lemurs who are time traveling in order to destroy the world. So it's like, what in the world is even going on? Like, it tends to just go all over the place. And on one hand, I'm there for it. On the other hand, like, what the heck?
I'm going to drop out, bring me back on. I'm going to drop out, can you bring me back on? My camera's freaked out or something.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Land is fun. Sorry.
Is he the ghost lemur guy, or were you talking about Deleuze?
Or Land is associated. Well, Land was part of the CCRU, which was a group in a certain university. So yes, he is associated with them. I don't know if he was the one.
Cybernetic Culture Research Unit.
Yep.
I don't know much about Land, but I back in the 90s when I was on AOL, there was this guy in the philosophy chat that was really big on Deleuze, and we used to fight and argue constantly. And he was one of the most unpleasant people I've ever encountered. And so my association with Deleuze is through him, and it's not a positive one.
Well, that's completely fair. I mean, like,
it was kind of my first taste of Pomo. Like, nothing he said made sense.
Well, like with a lot of these postmodernist philosophers, at least the ones I've seen, you can sort of take bits and pieces that make sense and just leave the rest of the nonsense. Like, one thing that Deleuze has, which I think is at least a little bit worthwhile, is deterritorialization, which is, well, exactly what it sounds like. It's taking something that's specific to a location or to a group of people or to a culture and bringing it outside of that so it's more general. So the most obvious example is actually, well, one of them is fast food chains. Okay, like McDonald's, for example. McDonald's was a very specific fast food restaurant, or a very specific restaurant. The guy who made McDonald's had a very fast way of making burgers. He made burgers quick, and then they just started expanding, which is a form of deterritorialization because it stopped being relegated to this one particular area, and just expanded out and out and out. And Deleuze's claim is that capitalism deterritorializes things because it makes it money. It makes the system money. So people are incentivized to deterritorialize things.
I thought you were good at philosophy.
I'm not. No. This is my understanding of it. I might be entirely wrong, and the machine lies can come in and like start nervously laughing and then explain why why nothing I said makes any sense.
Is it like the opposite of cultural appropriation? Are we talking about culture being deterritorialized?
Well, I think cultural appropriation would be a form of deterritorialization.
Because I think it's already I don't think anybody owns culture or language. I think it's already deterritorialized. I think culture comes into the world deterritorialized and available for anybody who comes across it.
I agree with that, yeah.
Well, that is certainly true, but taking the culture out of one place and bringing it to another is what he's describing.
I guess it's just the word deterritorialized that I'm getting hung up on. That's just cultural diffusion.
To a degree, yes. But not necessarily. Like there's a distinction between like deterritorialization and reterritorialization.
Is that what like the native people are trying to do?
I'm not super aware of what they're trying to
do. Especially with the men's groups I'm involved in, the Lakota seem to think that they own certain processes and ceremonies and ways of phrasing things, and they wrote a letter to the Mankind Project saying, "You're making money off of our culture. We want some of the money. We want you to stop doing these things because they're our processes," and they're not. And so they want control. They want like copyright control over things like animal names, smudging, sweat lodges, things like that. Anything in their mind, it's a bunch of white people doing things that belong to native culture, and they're very offended. They're very aggrieved by it, and they want financial benefits.
Well, they're not actually aggrieved or offended by it. They want the financial thing. They're pretending to be aggrieved by it because of the financial possibility.
I don't want to make assumptions about what's actually in their heads and hearts, but that would be a cynical take on it. And so they threatened to protest one of the weekends
if they never brought money into it, I probably wouldn't think
capitulated, and they gave in, and they're like, okay, we'll change all this stuff to make you happy.
That's ridiculous.
Well, so they're trying to like claim what is it? Culture re-territorialization.
Within Deleuzian language, I think that would be the term. Yeah. So deterritorialization is the philosophical key to understanding what Nick Land was on about with accelerationism. He was saying, you know, this thing that capitalism does, let's do it so hard that capitalism either implodes or AI kills everybody.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know. Why exactly Nick Land wants AI to kill everybody is your guess is as good as mine.
Because you might as well get it over with, I guess. I don't know.
I'm not that much of a nihilist. So capitalism is what he wants to accelerate to its own destruction.
Either to its own destruction or until AI singularity takes over the world.
This is fantasy thinking.
Well, I'm sure he was a big fan of The Matrix, but I believe he was in China when The Matrix came out, so I don't know how much you watched it. But regardless,
I'm not sure why, but for some reason, some of like this, I was looking at some of the Nick Land stuff, and something about it reminds me of this other guy named Stuart Home. You ever heard of him before? He started this movement called Neoism in the 70s.
I've never heard of him.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something to look into. I don't think they're really that related to what Nick Land is. I just like something about. I was looking over an overview of Nick Land and who he was and stuff like that, and something about it just reminded me of the Stuart Home thing. So he's an interesting character, who's it's kind of tangentially related to situationism. I don't know if you heard of that, but
I've heard of situationism.
The Situationists were like a group in the '60s that kind of sparked the French workers' revolt thing, or student revolt thing. It was a bunch of people who boldly wanted to stand up for their right to do nothing. I think they had the most base version of socialism because there was no pretension about it being good for the world or anything. They just didn't want to do shit, and they still wanted to get money. You know,
because I was going to say, don't people already have that right?
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. They just didn't want to be poor, but they didn't want to do anything, and that's why they revolted. I'm not. It's like I have a weird kind of like begrudging respect for that kind of like honesty in revolutionaries.
Yeah. I will always have more respect for somebody who comes out and says, yeah, I have this retarded view, as opposed to
exactly.
Sorry. I shouldn't be using that term because we're on YouTube. Not because I don't want to offend you, but because
I've seen that term pass many times, so I think that one's safe.
Okay, yeah, it's safe. I've never heard of. I mean, we've got like a viewer.
You could say this is the extreme stream. You could say.
Hey, Fresh Company. I think you might be the only person listening to this right now. How does that make you feel?
It's an interesting conversation. So I don't know. It's interesting to me anyway.
Don't say the N word. Although there was a guy on a stream the other day using it. Not my stream, but a stream, and it's still up. So.
I have no plans. I don't want to get your channel banned, man.
Well, I appreciate it. It's because I'm sure it's coming sooner or later.
You know, if we start getting more viewers, Jeff, we just go back and delete the ones where anything like that gets said. It's fine. Just like somebody scrubbing their Twitter account or their X account or whatever the fuck it's called.
Oh, I never delete.
I never do either. But I've never gotten any kind of popularity enough where it mattered.
Well,
so
neither have I. So yeah, I don't block or delete. I could just ignore.
Yeah. I always say I feel like if someone's really odious, like blocking them is like validating them in a way. So I just ignore them.
I just ignore them. It's so
easy exactly. Because if I block them and they can tell they're blocked, it like validates that troll instinct somehow. And I refuse to do that, so I just ignore them completely. Anyway,
I avoid social media most of the time. I have like an exception, which is Discord.
Oh, are you like only on Discord?
Pretty much. I mean, you can find me on other social media platforms if you look hard enough, but you won't.
No, I won't go hunt for you if you.
Don't want to be
you're breaking up a little bit more now too. I don't know if it's like a cache issue or something on the computer that you're using, but yeah, your audio is breaking up pretty badly.
Is this better?
It's just real staticky. I don't know, man. I'm just letting you know. It's fine for me. It's not bothering me any. I just want to let you know. I didn't know if it's.
I don't know. Say something. Talk a little bit.
Okay.
Seems fine now.
So
Seems fine now.
Yeah. I think
it's 27.
Okay. He was only doing it for a little while.
All right. With a lot of these philosophers, like the thing that attracts me to them is I find them interesting. I mean, I actually own like a copy of Plato's Dialogues. I haven't even opened it though. I bought it from a Southern guy who had a major collection of books. Eventually, I'm going to read it. Probably won't get it, but I'll read it.
Yeah, I read it a long time ago.
I think you'd appreciate it. Like anybody that comes online and has these kinds of conversations, I think would enjoy Plato.
I definitely have some Platoism in my genetic philosophical makeup. So
everybody does.
Yeah.
Well, I've said for a while, two things. One, I believe that political views are at least partially genetic, and two, I believe I'm genetically probably a leftist, if I'm being honest.
You're a leftist?
Genetically, not actually.
What does that mean?
I'm actually very well. I think that people. I believe the stats there. So there was a series of twin studies in Duluth, Minnesota. At least I believe it was in Duluth. That showed that political affiliation is like 40% heritable. And when I say I'm genetically a leftist, I mean I think I would be left wing if I wasn't raised.
Does that mean
very right environment?
Temperament? There's certain temperaments that are more
authoritarian
versus what is a leftist temperament or genetic leftist? What traits?
High in openness, high in.
Why is that associated? Why do the leftists get to claim?
That's just. I mean, I'm going by what I've heard other people say.
I know plenty of like most of the right people on the right I've been meeting lately have been some of the most open people.
Well, I think that's changed. I think it's changing now. Classically, it tends to be more of a leftist type thing, but it seems like lately leftists started to turn more like rigid about things and less open. So.
Well, So two things. One, it's Moral Foundations Theory by Jonathan Haidt, which
I'm very familiar. I like that. I like Haidt.
Yeah, and that I believe is where the
you have certain moral foundations that are more aligned with left, like fairness, care, harm axis.
Yeah, at least I think I would. I think it would be more pronounced if I wasn't. Enculturated in a certain way. But the other thing.
Now we're in.
What?
No, go ahead. I don't want to get us in a rabbit hole.
But the other thing is, I think the reason why the left wing is less open to discussion nowadays than in previous generations is because now they're winning a lot harder. And when you're winning, you don't really have to talk about the fact that you're winning with other people. Like, if that makes sense. Like, why exactly would you debate, say, generic left-wing topic, gay marriage, if you're already winning that? Like, it's already done. Why in the world would anybody want to debate that? If they supported it, at least on the level of policy.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But they're taking that stance with things that they haven't actually won yet.
They are indeed, yes. But if gay marriage, yeah, you're right. That's definitely.
Yeah, I don't spend my time debating gay marriage much either. I indulged Andrew that one night.
Well, I think that on some level they already have won a lot of these topics. Well, at least they believe they have. Whether or not they have fully,
I think they have won the Oppression Olympics and whatever benefits or privilege that gives it. Because I think the trans issues are
Well, they created the oppression Olympics, so I mean, of course they won it.
Well, I mean, all of the woke did collectively, feminists, racialists, all. But currently, the trans are at the bottom of the pyramid in the victor's seat. They've displaced the feminist agenda. They've displaced the neo-racist agenda. So they certainly have won the megaphone, the current megaphone, and ability to set. But they're not setting law. They're setting the agenda. But they're acting like that agenda is going to. They're taking the, like he said, with gay marriage on an agenda that hasn't actually been enacted yet. To me, it's just hubris. It's that arrogant, condescending, liberal smugness that I hate so much.
Well, I mean, I think I think it's rather odd that the sort of framing that I've seen for the left wing, at least of who they represent, has sort of switched over to the right wing in recent years. Like the poor, the working class, like the framing is just so wacky now, because now like the left wing more accurately, or at least I don't believe in representation, like as a concept in government, but that's a different topic.
You don't believe in what?
But you representation, or I don't believe in representation within government. But
like a republic, like a representative government, like we have. Is that you don't believe in that?
Or no, well, I believe that the system can exist. I just don't think that it's possible to actually represent people's views.
Oh, okay.
So you don't believe representation actually represents?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it may not. It's kind of the best we have.
And I also think that if it could represent, the people who get into power still wouldn't do it. Because but that's it.
Because they're incentivized in other directions.
Yeah.
Once they get the power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's true. It's the reality.
But the sort of signaling that the left wing does is very different from, they're not really going for working class people unless those working class people happen to be black or Hispanic. But no, actually, not even that. Like, it's just black poor people. When the left wing talks about poor people, they're just talking about black poor people, because whenever anybody talks about representation, they don't talk about Hispanics in the U.S. That just doesn't happen, which I find bizarre.
I've heard it mentioned before, but it's very rare.
Yeah, they're always talking about like poor blacks, if they're talking about any of the poor, and like Hispanics and white, Hispanics are, I would say, like in the middle, but like poor white people, that's only Republicans now. And which is like really weird, because I grew up thinking, okay, Democrats represent poor people, Republicans represent rich people, and Democrats also represent, other quote unquote marginalized groups. But now it's just all over the place.
Yeah. They're shifting for sure.
Oh,
the Democrats used to be the party of the working class. Like, that's how I knew it most of my life.
Absolutely.
Now everything's. I'm looking forward to seeing where this ends up. It's going to be very funny, I'm sure.
Because the party, in a two-party system, the parties are just kind of containers, and the people shift between them as the values of the parties change. So there's nothing about any one party that says it has to represent this value or this point of view. So if people are alienated from one party, they're going to start filling up that alternate party, and then that party is going to take on the new values of all of the disaffected people from the other side. That's what I see happening with the right. But I'm an enlightened centrist, so I don't.
I prefer the term principled. I prefer the term principled. I hate the term centrist. So I have my principles. That's why I stick by. So.
Well, you see, I'm a sensible centrist, which means I don't believe in democracy, and I wish that the U.S. never actually gave up or never actually separated from the British. So
what? No.
Yeah, yeah,
What? Never.
absolutely.
Okay. That's
I'm
I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, but
No.
you know that's sort of a weird argument to make because if they didn't, I wouldn't be alive, and neither would any of us. So I'd be arguing against my own existence, which is funny.
Now, if you manage to somehow win that argument and change the past, then you would never exist. So you couldn't go back and change the past. And, you end up with the whole grandfather paradox thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that independent, revolutionary, rebellious spirit that gave us America. I would not want the world to lose that.
Well, you're a Satanist, so of course.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to lose it either, and I'm not a Satanist.
I think America really is something special when you look at the rest of the world, and I don't, for whatever its faults are, I'm glad the revolution happened.
I'm not itching to live in another country because despite how many problems I've had here, but I'm not itching to live in another country. So.
Well, the basic take is a lot of the issues we have today are specific outgrowths of America, and if America remained a British colony and we maintain more British values, then obviously there wouldn't. Well, then you just have more British imperialism, which I mean, and as far as imperialism goes, I'd rather like the British than I don't know, Belgium. They weren't the best.
What British values would you prefer over the American ones?
Well, strong, loyal. Well, actually, yeah. You see, I'm a sensible centrist, which means I'm not actually a centrist.
Are you a mold bugger?
I do like Moldbug in some aspects, but not in all aspects.
Okay.
You kind of remind me of J-Reg a little bit, like with some of that.
J-Reg?
Yeah, you watch J-Reg?
I watched. I've seen all of his anti-centrist stuff after he started doing the. I thought that the sequel series, The Mental Illnesses, was an April Fool's joke. I don't know if that was uploaded on April Fool's, and then he actually.
Oh, I don't know that one. He did one on mental illness.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, J-Reg does, I mean, he himself, I think he is schizophrenic, so he has a lot of.
He's definitely ADHD.
Certainly.
Well, that's for sure. Yeah. He's talked about being a schizophrenic before, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna have to check that out. Is it a series? Reviewing every mental illness?
Yes. And yes, I have seen his anti-centrist stuff.
Centricide. Yep. I love the Centricide series. I think it's great. But he has Jeff finds him to be a little bit kind of.
It's just his presentation
spastic
style. I can't track him. He's too jumpy.
I mean, he is very spastic, but I like it. It's just something I can vibe with it. So. He came on Paul's stream once, like where me and Jeff met, I met him.
He stream bombed it.
Yeah, he stream bombed. Yeah, it was great. PF Young.
Oh, J-Reg came to PF Young.
He came on JJ. PF Young was streaming with JJ McCullough, and at the end, J-Reg
appeared out of the back behind him
house
and pushes him away.
He was physically in the room with him, and he pushed him off the stream.
Yeah.
And he took his place and started taking over the stream.
We
never saw JJ again, and then after that, the stream ended.
It was great, man. He walks in from behind. He comes down these stairs, and you can't really see the figure coming behind him. He goes, "Get out of the way, old man!" He pushes him off he's like sitting one of those beach ball things, It looks like JJ McCullough just gets wiped out to the side, and you never see him again. It's great, man. It's honestly one of the best moments of live internet streaming I've ever seen.
Yeah,
so
it really was.
It's worth going back and just look for the PF Young. Look for PF Young and JJ McCullough. Look for the earliest one they have, and just go to the end of it. You don't need to watch the whole thing. Just watch the last 5 minutes.
I'll try to find it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
But yeah, I don't. I don't agree with Moldbug on everything, but I certainly think that he was very insightful on a lot of topics.
I know the name Moldbug. I can't remember what it was he wrote now.
So
Curtis Yarvin.
Yep.
Curtis Yarvin.
Curtis Yarvin, aka Manchester.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now I do recognize this guy.
I do like some of his stuff, especially on internet moderation, but not that nobody in America is going back to a monarchy.
Oh, I mean, I don't think that it's likely. I think whatever happens, whatever happens after the U.S. collapses, and I think it's inevitable that it will someday.
Wait, why? No, why?
Well,
because all empires fall.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily. We talked about it the other day that there's no inevitable.
No, I mean, I'm not saying. I'm just guessing that's what he means. That, all empires must fall eventually.
Well,
I don't know if that's
or evolve.
I'll probably be dead before it falls, but it could happen. I mean, I won't be here to see it.
So, when I hear people say that, I think that translates into their losing faith in liberalism, and I have not lost that faith in it yet.
I'm not losing faith. I'm just saying, like, I won't. I mean, like, I'm saying it could happen. It could happen after I die. I won't know it. That's all I mean. I'm just saying, like, anything can happen, man.
But he sounds like, I guess I'll call him Adam. Sounds like it. He sees something that indicates it's going to happen.
Well, I just think that it is. I just don't think that the U.S. will last forever because, well, I don't.
In
really
the
think
abstract.
In the abstract and the literal, both.
I must say. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just don't really see how it would. Like obviously, like so which comes first? The universe ends through whatever mechanism you believe in, or the U.S. The U.S. government collapses, like the U.S. federal government collapses. Like I would say it's more likely that the U.S. federal government collapses before the universe ends by whatever method.
Sure.
But do you see it? Do you see it collapsing now? Is there anything like now that?
Well, there are.
Is it like a house that you can see collapsing in front of you? You're like, oh, that house is collapsing. Look at it.
There is one sign that I do see that is really worrying for me personally. That's seen for a long time. That's the whole dichotomy between the rising cost of education and the declining rates and everything, and how, like, higher education. I don't know why, but it seems like a really a bedrock pillar of society in America. And I think that if, like, the college system completely collapses, I think it could cause a lot of like wide-ranging, like, because some dominoes could fall there that could really knock some things out from under people. I mean, people really could start revolting if the option of, if there is no way to possibly even, like, theoretically get out of the economic situation you're born into. I think that we could see real actual revolts. But I hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I'm certainly not on its side. I don't want to see revolution. I don't want to have to fight in one myself. I don't want my children to have to fight in one. But I mean, I'm just saying those things.
Well, so I do think two things. One, I'm very bad at predicting the future. So I'm not going to say I think the U.S. is going to collapse, but I do think that there are signs that there are big problems in the U.S. And I would say the biggest one is probably the competency crisis at the moment, which is yeah. Well, you're nodding, so I don't think I need to explain what that is.
I agree with you on that one.
While I do not necessarily think that will mean that the U.S. is going to collapse in my lifetime or anytime soon, I do think it is a big problem that needs to be corrected for. And if it isn't corrected for, well, the U.S. might collapse. Like, it's possible.
Yeah, I see you. I see what you're saying. I agree, but I don't know what we can do about it. But I know I do agree that it's something that needs to be addressed. But I don't know how to do that. So.
And so the point I was making with the collapse of the U.S., and I do think it is more likely that the U.S. collapses before the end of the universe. I think whatever comes after that is going to be something novel, more likely than anything. It's going to be a novel form of government that we haven't really thought of, or a weird mix of other forms.
I'd be open in changing the way we choose our president as trial by combat. I think that'd be fine.
I'm not even strictly opposed to that. Like, honestly, like.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's just like Trump and Biden fight to the death. I mean, I actually wouldn't have a problem with it, but
hold on, get Vince McMahon as president. He'd do it. Like get Vince McMahon to script the trial by combat.
Right, there you go.
Oh, fake anyway. Just make it literally WWE.
At least it'd be more entertaining than what we have now. So.
Well, I disagree. WWE has had some very decent storylines in these past few years.
I'm saying it would be more entertaining the way we choose our president now.
No. I know what you meant. I know what you meant.
Okay.
My humor is confusing.
My humor is very dry too. A lot of times, I can't even tell when I'm joking sometimes. So don't worry about it.
You can't tell when you're joking, and I don't have humor. So. Well, it still doesn't sound as hopeless as.
I don't think it's hopeless. I don't think it's hopeless, but
I am concerned about the decrease in competency that I've seen, even over my lifetime.
And the increase in mental illness. That's the other big one to me.
Well, part of that is nobody's getting adequate mental health care. It's a poor system in the first place that's getting overwhelmed with demand.
Well, we've never had proper mental health care in this country, and it doesn't seem like
not really.
But we never needed this much of it either. So, of course, we didn't have the population we have now either, and with the flood of migrants coming in and everything, which I'm not necessarily opposed to migrants coming in. I've never been opposed to immigration. I do think the open border thing is a disaster. But with the flood of new people coming into this country constantly that don't even bother trying to speak the language, which I think is a problem. If I go to Mexico and I can't speak Spanish, I'm the asshole, right? I mean, I'm wrong to think that.
Yeah, but it's hard to learn a new language as an adult.
Well, then I still think you should learn before you go. You try to take language. I still think you should learn. I still think you should learn before you try to integrate to another country. At the very least, act gracious whenever you can't speak it. You should be gracious about it, and not be a dick like most of these people.
Yeah, but you can't legislate that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can. Why not?
Why not?
Grace, be the grace police.
I mean, okay, the graceful part, yeah, maybe not. Yeah. I'm just saying, I've had to deal with in the jobs I've had here in Dallas, especially. I dealt with several people that get very offended whenever you can't speak Spanish, and I'm just like, I was working when I was working in the movie theater over here, and I was just
why would they? Why this is America? Why would they expect white people to?
Because they came to this country and so many other places
to cater to them. They just have to adjust to reality.
Well, yeah, I just think that it's weird how they make it into where we're the asshole when we can't speak their language.
My view is that being able to speak the main language of the country should be like the baseline, and that there should be more stuff added on top. Like that. That's like the bare minimum.
I agree. People say it's racist, but I mean, I think that if I was going to move to France, but I refuse to learn to speak French and want to speak English the whole time there and never learn French, I think I'm the asshole. I'm the one that I should be ejected from that country. I shouldn't be allowed to live there in that situation.
That's actually completely acceptable, and that's because they're French.
Yeah, I was going to say there's bigger assholes in France than you would ever be.
Well, I'm just saying. I use France as a random thing. I'm just saying that if I move to another country and I refuse to learn the language, I feel like I should be the one that is made to leave.
I'd have to learn English to succeed in England, even living up here in the Pacific Northwest.
You get by fine in England.
No, it works against me. I can't even adapt to the American English spoken here in the Pacific Northwest well enough to have the kind of success that I would if I could. So really, I have a lot of sympathy for people for linguistic prejudice and people who struggle linguistically.
But you speak the language. You speak English.
I don't speak it to the standard that it's expected you speak it up here, especially in the Seattle area.
I've never heard you say a single thing that doesn't hold up to the standard of English I've heard anywhere in this whole country.
Oh my God, people have been they've been doing nothing but make fun of.
Because you have an accent?
Do you have an accent and my voice?
Huh? Oh my God, that's not speaking English. That's nothing to do with that's nothing to do. That's because people are assholes.
I'm saying there's a cultural, the cultural standard here for speech and language and articulation.
I'm simply talking about knowing the words. I'm just simply talking about if someone comes up to me and they're communicating to me in English, but they have a thick Spanish accent or a thick Mexican accent, something like that, I'm fine with that. I don't care. But they can have whatever accent they want.
what you're saying they do with you, like they get irritated that you don't speak Spanish or whatever. I'm saying they do the same thing here, even with the English language. They get.
I know. I'm saying that's ridiculous.
I know.
That's some lefty bullshit right there.
Yeah.
Some elitist man. That would piss me off. I would lose it. I would lose my shit if that.
So it's not even a matter of like going to a foreign country and having to learn it. Like even you can move to certain English areas and still struggle with the same phenomena.
That's insane. I've never encountered that.
There's no way to learn that. Like you can't learn. I can't learn their accent or their.
Because I've never lived that far up north. I guess I've never been that far up north. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in California. I've lived in Nevada. I've lived in Texas. I've lived in Arkansas. I've lived in Louisiana for a short period, and I've lived in. That's it. That's the only states I've lived in. But so I've never lived that far up north. But I mean, I've never ran into that anywhere. Like anywhere I've been to, like
haven't
people.
Either, till I moved up here.
Well, I think Seattle sounds like a bad place, and I would leave.
I'm trying. Believe me, I do not want to be here.
Come down to Texas, man. Come to Dallas. Like there's lots of housing here,
and they're all really big because it's Texas.
No, they're not. Unfortunately, there's plenty of them that are very small. Unfortunately, I live in a small one myself.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, I know. I wish everything was big like they say, big like they say it is, but that's just not the case. Dallas is a big city, though. It is a big city. It's a very big city.
Well, I'm generally just opposed to living in cities at all. Like I've avoided that as much as
I understand that. I like cities because there is culture there of any kind, because I like to be able to go to concerts and stuff like that. But man, there's plenty of other aspects of living in a city that just suck. They just suck so much. But yeah, I do like having access to concerts when I have money anyway. I haven't had money in a long time, but.
Well, that is a pretty good benefit because I like metal a lot.
Yeah.
And turns out near where I live, there's quite a few venues that just have like all these like metal concerts, and I've been to quite a few. Like I saw Ghost Bath recently. That was interesting. I didn't even know who they were. Then I come in and I see like posters along the wall: depressive, suicidal black metal. Like, oh, okay, yeah. So it's that genre black metal.
Oppressive, suicidal black metal. Okay, I don't know metal bands to be honest, but like I know a few bands. I know Death Haven, but that's about that's probably the hardest one I know.
Yeah, black gaze is a fun subgenre or microgenre, whatever you want to call it.
No, it's like black metal shoegaze.
Yep. Yeah, exactly right.
Cool. I know shoegaze. I know shoegaze really well.
Yeah.
How's it different than The Cure? Because The Cure they don't even sound depressed. They sound bouncy and happy. Every one of their songs.
Well, some of their they have several styles, but there's Disintegration and.
That's true. But all their famous songs are all like, yesterday.
He does have a poppy side too, although they didn't start out that way.
Yeah, I know. I just think it's funny.
I've never listened to them. The Cure.
That's so weird. I've never met someone that's never listened to The Cure.
Well, I mean, I can probably name like 20 bands you've never heard of that are all pretty good.
I know it's a generational thing. This is I'm reaching that generational divide. The not listening to The Cure is like not listening to the Beatles.
Well, I have listened to the Beatles, but I have never listened to The Cure.
I think you're better off. I think the Beatles are much more sensible like Cure. I have listened to Cure. I like some of their songs. I don't know. I don't consider them to be essential music though. I'd be considered much more essential
for goth music. They are for like goth and
My Bloody Valentine's way more foundational for goth.
No, they're not. They don't have that mopey
face
darkness
paint
that The Cure does. No, not visually, just orally. They're oral aesthetic. There's no substitute for The Cure. It's kind of like he took David Bowie and he gothified it. But the roots are definitely, you can hear the Bowie in the roots.
I can hear the Bowie in the roots, yeah. I like Bowie better.
Maybe it's a generational thing where there was not that kind of music. The Cure really stood out. But I also think he not only helped define the genre, but he's some of the best of the genre.
No, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of The Cure, but like I don't think they're terrible or anything. But I mean, from music from that era, like of the new wave kind of like music like that, I prefer like Joy Division or or something like that over The Cure any day of the week. I think
became
Joy
New Order at some point, but
yeah,
they all started about the same. It was The Cure, Susie, Joy Division. There were a few others, but those were the main three.
Well, sorry, but I have to go.
Okay.
Thank you for having me on. This has been a very
great chat. Stop by anytime.
Stop by anytime, yeah.
Right. I may do so. This has been very pleasant. See you.
You too. See you later.
Have you ever seen the movie 24-Hour Party People?
Yes. Wait, let me see. I'm getting confused with Party Monster, but I think I've seen both of them. Is that the one about the Manchester scene?
Yes.
I did see it.
I love that movie.
It didn't stand out to me, but I didn't. At the time I watched it, I really
didn't pay a lot of attention to. You should watch it. We should watch it on stream because I think it's first of all, it's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, and I think that the way it studies that whole period, the way it goes through Ian Curtis's life and stuff like that, I think it's really fascinating.
Add it on the list.
Yeah, I'm gonna add it to the list. I definitely will.
I did watch that. They did I think a documentary of him, and then they did that biopic of him.
Control, yeah. Control was okay. It was all right. I think 24-Hour Party People ultimately is a better biopic of him, even though it's only a small part of the movie. I just think it cuts more to the core of it, and it managed to do so much more, so much less. Control was okay, but I don't know, it left me feeling a little flat for some reason. Whereas I didn't get that from I don't know. I think 24-Hour Party People is a movie that I walked away from feeling really good at the end of it, though, and Control's a movie it just felt empty at the end of it. So it's just a very depressing film. So yeah, it's really very depressing.
It's a depressing story.
It's a very depressing story, yes, but I mean, I don't know. I think that story works better in the context of the other movie, but still, I think they're both good. I just remember feeling so sad after that movie was over. I love Joy Division though. I mean, New Order stuff is good too. I don't get me wrong. I don't dislike New Order, but I like the original stuff better with the.
Do you like Closer? Their second album.
Yeah, I think they're both good albums. Yeah.
I haven't been able to get into Closer as much as.
I don't get into as much as the first one, but I do think they're both good albums. So. I can't say I can't remember as many individual tracks or any individual tracks right now of Closer. I haven't listened to it in a long time. I went through a phase where I was really into the new wave stuff, like back, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I was listening to a lot of stuff like every day when I was making music a lot too. But I stopped listening to it in recent years, so I go through periods like that with music. I don't know. I just like I go through a phase where I listen to like a lot of like 1 or 2 different bands, and then like I just kind of like get sick of it and move on to something else eventually.
Oh yeah, lately, my favorites are always changing from week to week.
There's this band I've been hearing on the radio here, our local kind of indie, public radio station type of thing. But they play like a lot of indie music, and then there's this band they've been playing called Genesis Oahu. Ooh, I can't remember how it's spelled. Oahu. I don't know if I can find it. I cannot. I don't know how you spell that freaking thing. Anyway, they are cool as shit though. I don't know. I can't find it when I look at it. It's such a confusing sounding name.
It's one word.
Is it Genesis? Oh no, that's just like a place in. No, it's like 2 words. It's like this song called I think it's called "Leaving the Light." Let me see here. There we go. Okay, yeah. Owusu. Okay, Owusu. Yeah, like that. I just got into this band. I found it earlier without any trouble, but I guess I was just spelling it wrong or something. I think I looked up the name of the song though. But like that song is like that's the newest thing I've heard recently that was like really cool stuff. It kind of sounds like a cross between. Have you ever heard Death Grips? You heard Death Grips? They're like this insane like. Just they sound mental like, but they're like this. They're like a hip hop metal hybrid kind of thing where like they just like it's like really like these like massive like hip hop type beats, but with like this like kind of punk rock metal energy to it. So they're pretty cool. So Genesis Oahu, it kind of reminds me of a cross between them and like some other stuff. Can't remember what the other comparison I thought of the other day was, but they're pretty cool though. I just heard them like 2 days ago for the first time, and I just thought I'd mention it. I don't know. They have a really cool like punk energy too. I thought you might like it.
I might check them out.
Yeah, check them out. Well, I guess it's I'm getting kind of tired, man. I think I'm gonna go.
Yeah, I gotta work tomorrow, so I will see you tomorrow evening.
Yeah, I have it all queued up. I mean, like, so as long as I'll be able to like share the screen with you guys, it's all set up on my end. So
okay, I'll post the link in the probably Paul's server, and
that'll work
whenever I'm free.
Yeah, sure,
and then we can get it going.
All right, man.
All right.
I checked. I kind of scanned through the copy just to make sure it was all good, and it's I got a really good nice. It won't. It's a really high quality copy, so it shouldn't degrade too much whenever other people copy off the screen. So you know what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah. So all right. Cool. I found the Girl 6 thing, huh? On that weird.
Yeah, because we watched that Tuesday. I've been wanting to show Emerald that for a while.
It's such a weird Russian website, man. It's like Russian Facebook. I have no idea why they have video posting on it, but I actually found more than one copy of it. One of them was dubbed over in Russian. So.
Yeah.
At first, I thought that's all I was going to find. I found that at first, and I was like, I played it, and it was just like you could hear the dialogue for it, but then there's like a really loud Russian voice speaking over it, going, it's like a really distorted vocal and everything, it was a mic and everything, and I was just like, holy shit, who could even watch this, even if you were Russian? And then and then I found the other one. So so anyway, I'll see you tomorrow, man.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Take care. Okay, I guess that's the stream for tonight because I got to get going too. Let me play us out. I wish we had some Cure. I can't believe that. It took me a while to appreciate the Cure too, though. Honestly, when all my friends were into it, I wasn't into it. I didn't get into it later until I was an adult. So I can show them some grace. Okay, here we go. Is there anything remotely gothic I can play? Into Space, maybe? Ooh, no. Night Driving. This is as close as it's going to get from the StreamYard selection. Okay, thank you for watching. If we had anybody watching, we're going to stream tomorrow night after the movie. So like, I don't know, 8 or 9 Central Time. So look for us then, and you can come on and join the discussion or talk about whatever. Okay, I'm getting tired. I'll see you later. Bye.